we'll just give it a minute or two on everyone that still joins. Sorry, we're having a few technical issues, but hey, it wouldn't be a Zoom call without one or two technical issues. And I give it 10 minutes before a cat wanders across screen.
Yeah. On the sat.
and actually 5 minutes before my dog starts barking. So we'll just give it another couple of seconds for people to get into the room, and then we'll get started. And it's lovely to see so many people. It's fantastic. Can everybody hear okay? Can I just check that? Yeah.
Yes. Hey. Yes.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I think it booted me out, Chris, and I had to rejoin. I think it booted everybody else out at the same time. So
okay.
People in the waiting room, and then they had to come back in.
No worries at all. It's all part of the fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're all getting used to. Well, we've had a long time to get used to these kind of things now. I'm sure.
I'm still getting used to it, Chris. I'm not the greatest with technology.
I seem to spend most of my life on Teams, so Zoom is actually quite new for me. But there we go.
So let's have a competition to start with. Who's the latest in the day, and who's the earliest in the day regarding time zones?
Oh.
I can see Hayley.
So I think Hayley, there you go, Hayley. You're confusing me, Hayley, because you sent me a message earlier saying see you tomorrow, and I was like, no, I'll see you later.
I was going to bed.
Because it's already Friday where you are, and that's just.
Hi, Hayley. I didn't see you there. Nice to see you.
And I don't get up this early, so.
What time is it there, Hayley?
It's 6 o'clock. I got up at 20 to 6. It's 6 o'clock, 5:06 in the morning. But I have to say that you two women, Elaine and Mary, are absolutely worth getting up early for. So
no pressure.
No, yeah.
6 a.m. is commitment.
Oh dear. Oh.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to adjust something. Right. I'm going to just make a start. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining us for the first 365 Days of Compassion book club of 2021, and the first one that we've done on video as well. So let's just say there's quite a few nerves going on at the moment, but we'll sure work through this. And if you were going to do something that was quite challenging and new, etc., to be doing it with the Kindness Workbook and the team behind that seems quite a good option. So I can't think of anyone else best to be doing it with. So I'm just going to take a minute or two to go through the format of what we're going to do. We do want it to be as we do when we do it on Twitter, trying to be as collaborative, if you like, and join in as we go through. So what I will invite towards the end of the session is some questions. So if you do want to pop some questions, if you want to pop them into the chat, and if you want to indicate on the chat if you're happy to ask that question, or if you prefer that I read it out, doesn't matter. What we're going to do is I've got a few questions just to go through after we've introduced our guests of this evening. We'll go through some questions, a couple of things we want to delve a little bit deeper in around the book, and then we'll open it up for you to ask your questions. So if that's okay with everyone. So I ought to do introductions, didn't I? Some people will know who I am, but my name is Chris Winson. I'm the creator and curator of the hashtag 365 Days of Compassion, of which this book club is part of. It's been running for a couple of years, actually, and one of our guests tonight was the very first guest to that book club. And so we've done that mainly on Twitter, but we thought we'd try this on video. So first of all, our three guests, so the team behind the Kindness Workbook. So first of all, we've got Phoebe Munday. So Phoebe is the illustrator of the book, second year student of fine art, and I'm sure this is the first of many books that she'll be going on to illustrate. And the co-authors of the book. So first of all, we've got Dr. Mary Welford.
Hello.
So Mary was the first guest of the book club way back in October of, I did work this out actually earlier, 2018. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Author of several books, including one of my favourites, CFT for Dummies, heavily involved in education, clinical psychologist, psychotherapist, sorry. Runs the annual retreat over in Bude. Hopefully that might be happening later this year.
Yeah.
And enjoys the beach life down there in that beautiful part of the country. And second co-author, which is Dr. Elaine Beaumont. I can't see Elaine. Oh, there you are, Elaine, down the corner of my screen. Hello. So it's also Elaine's second time here on the book club. So you've been on here previously with her other co-author of the Compassionate Mind workbook. Also involved in education, but as a lecturer up at the University of Salford, particularly around the area of compassion, which is obviously not a surprise. And also a lover of Hawaiian sunsets, I believe, if I remember correctly. So that's our guest for tonight. So
and Hawaiian coffee, Chris.
Well, yes. Yes, you did smuggle some out for me, and it was lovely. Okay, so I'm going to set off a couple of questions just to get us going. So first of all, and this is a question perhaps first of all to Elaine and then perhaps to Mary, how did the Kindness Workbook start? What was the idea behind it? And, what was the intended audience for it?
Well, I've had the idea for quite some time about doing something about to do with creative therapies or creative interventions. It might be easier if everyone goes on mute because I'm hearing some background from somewhere. So the idea came from, I just really wanted to do something about creative interventions, not necessarily focusing on one modality. And for you guys that know me, you know that I do love a workbook. So it was just like another perfect opportunity. And a lot of my work I teach at Salford University, which is in Manchester, so quite a distance away from where Mary and Phoebe are. But I also work doing trauma work with young people. So like mainly I did some work with the people impacted by the Manchester bomb, and I've done work in youth groups, and I used to teach A-level psychology many years ago. I was a counsellor in a college for a few years. And I just always remember that in a lot of cases when I was working with young people, creative exercises and interventions really helped them. And of course, I knew about Mary, and Mary and I kind of knew each other from a while back. And I knew about her work in schools. And I thought it would just be a perfect match because, she's kind of working with people a little bit younger than me. On saying that, we don't necessarily just think that the Kindness Workbook is for young people. I think it could be for, everybody could get something out of it. And then we got Phoebe involved, which was fantastic. So Mary knew Phoebe, and Phoebe sent us some characters. And as soon as I saw Phoebe's illustrations, I knew it was a perfect fit. So that's kind of how it came about, really, and just not really wanting to focus on one modality. I mean, for those of you that have seen the book, you'll see there's a big flavour of compassion-focused therapy in there. But we've got ACT, we've got CBT, we've got popular psychology. So it feels like it's something a bit different, and particularly with Phoebe's input with the illustrations, it makes it a little bit more unique, I think. Should I pass over to you, Mary?
Yeah. I suppose that I mean, the only thing that I would add is, you know, obviously both me and Elaine have written stuff that's predominantly focused on adults, but I don't think that you work long in adult work without actually starting to think, I need to get in earlier. 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 And, you know, that's how I ended up working my way down the age range. So starting to work with young people when they'd come up from, you know, kind of like children's services into adult services, and then kind of like transition, and then started working in schools, and then kind of like getting, you know, younger and younger. And then you realize, actually, I need to work with the adults, you know, kind of like around the children. And I think that there is something, I've always, you know, thought that if you can be creative, things land, you know, if you can tell stories, if you can, you know, create pictures, all of these different things, it just seems to have more landing. So I was really pleased when Elaine kind of like contacted me and said, would you like to get involved? And as I say, I'd been in contact with Phoebe about another project, and don't live far away from me, do you, Phoebe? So it seemed like a great thing, and it was, you know, we obviously put things out thinking about different illustrators and different things. And it was through a process of Phoebe submitting kind of like stuff to us, and us really properly looking at them and comparing them with other kind of like stuff. So it wasn't just because at the time you were a teenager, it was actually on merit. You know, so that was really good, and that kind of lifted the whole project and changed it, because then when we knew that we could have quite a lot of illustrations, it helped our writing. So
that's very interesting, actually, because I wanted to expand a little bit more about the illustrations, because I think for me that is something that is I was about to say different about the book, but I reflected when I was about to say different then, in that I think a number of books have used illustrations in it, and it's been very, very powerful. So maybe if you could just expand a little bit, particularly because I know you use characters within the books, and this way of kind of trying to connect in a creative way with the reader. So I don't know if Phoebe and you could just expand a little bit more around perhaps how those characters developed, leading on from what Mary's just said.
Yeah, sure. Hi, it's Phoebe, by the way.
Phoebe.
The characters, we had 4 original characters in the beginning, which we were playing around with for months, and we decided to add like another 8 characters onto that as we were going through the book. And some of them are based on like people I know, friends. Some of them are completely made up. Some of them are based off celebrities. I remember in part 1 of the book, there's a character who looks a lot like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. I think it fits his character. But yeah, making more characters, I think, helps the book, and it makes my job way more entertaining.
Yeah, no, I think it does, and I think it helps to bring those words and helps people to connect, perhaps think about how they connect or resonate with one of those characters that you've illustrated, and obviously within the words as well. And I guess that characterization and the illustrations support some of the key themes that you've weaved throughout the chapters. So Elaine, Mary, would you mind perhaps expanding upon some of those themes and how they kind of interact and how they weave throughout the book?
We've got 3 sections in the book, and in each of those sections we've got different characters. So in section 1, which we just focus on what is well-being, and we have this kind of kindness mnemonic, which is all about the kindness ingredients and what would, you know, what that would look like. And then in section 2 we have different characters, and the kind of idea really was that with all of the different characters, so there's quite a few in total, you would be able to identify with the look of one, because they all look different. And one of the themes is that, you know, you kind of get the case study, a bit of a story around the character, And then you get different exercises or worksheets, which are then completed by the character, which then gives the reader, hopefully, a bit of a template, a bit of an example of what to kind of, how to engage with the exercise. So that's one of the themes. But another one of the themes which I quite like is the icons. So all the way through the book, we've got these icons that Phoebe created, and we've got an elephant for remember, we've got reflect icon and imagine, and practice. That we've got scenario 3 people, the same person on a bike. So, and I suppose the overarching theme is it's all about boosting well-being. So it's all about how can we use creative interventions, whether it be music, art, vision boards, or mind maps, our imagination, just to kind of give our well-being a boost. So we're not coming from a place of there's a lack of something. It's from a place of actually we all struggle at times, and there's different things that we can do no matter what our age is to boost our well-being. Anything you want to add, Mary, that I've missed?
No, I think that what I like again is the fact that you can pick up kind of like chapters as standalone, or even activities as standalone things, but also there is a process to go through, that you can build on things, kind of like, and work on different aspects. I'm loving the cat, Camelina, I'm loving the cat. But it's that kind of thing of building on stuff, which I really like, and then breaking it down to the physiology and our thoughts and our behavior and our emotions and things like that. So hopefully there are standalone things, but also there is a process as well if people want to go through the whole process. And I suppose the other thing is that, again, I think that illustrations can become an engagement talking point. I've used things in, kind of like, I don't know, resources where I've been playing something, and the connecting chatter that goes on in the group is not necessarily about the thing that I'm playing. It's about what the sound of the person's voice is like, or kind of whether it's fast or slow, or if you're looking at some worksheets in a book, it's kind of like sometimes the comments are around how it's laid out, so again, kind of like the illustrations give another dimension to that.
I think one of the other themes I'm just thinking as Mary's talking is about the kindness crusaders. So we have the idea of actually not just the character examples with the case studies, but actually there's something as well that we can use that can maybe be our supportive friend. And we choose a variety of different words. So we kind of say kindness crusader, superhero, compassionate friend, coach, so hopefully there's something there. And one of the characters is a teacher, one of the characters is an owl. So if you don't want to pick something that, a person in your imagination, it's the option of maybe using an owl or another animal. So that's kind of a theme that goes throughout, because we kind of talk about in different sections. Can you pick one of your kindness crusaders to help you when you kind of meet this challenge or face the challenge? And Phoebe did a wonderful job with those characters.
I think the only, kind of like, again, it's really nice that we're all here, because I can hear you talking, Elaine, and I can kind of like think, oh, that's really important, and thinking about some other stuff. I suppose that one of the things that I'm really, happy about is that there's this move away from us hopefully being tribal about the therapeutic approaches, and in actual fact more towards, I really like this word consilience, although I did have to look it up when I first kind of like heard it, around the idea that in actual fact, you know, for therapies, as we're getting more evidence-based, we are becoming more similar, you know, and it is the integration of different things. So, you know, what I like about, you know, what drew me to CFT, you know, is the ability to, in actual fact, integrate and to draw on other approaches, but also to respect those and other approaches as well. You know, and see what they bring rather than it being a kind of like a competitive thing. So, you know, we also have the idea of the kindness box, and the kindness box being something that people add to remind them of things, to be helpful to them. You know, that idea is not, you know, we've called it the kindness box because obviously it's the kindness workbook, but you can see these ideas across many different approaches, you know, so you can see some people would call it your first aid box or your kit bag or your toolkit. But these ideas are, you know, are outside of the therapy domain as well, you know, kind of like how many people naturally find themselves doing those types of things, having a drawer or having something that they're treasures, you know, in. So again, some of the themes are actually, yes, there's themes in the book, but these represent themes that actually whole ranges of different therapy modalities are finding, you know, and people using those modalities are finding useful.
Yeah. And I think with creative interventions, just kind of adding to that, you know, we're hearing a lot more at the moment about how music is helping people.
Yeah.
You know, not just during lockdown, people with dementia, you know, and with young people, music's so powerful. So again, it's thinking about what creative interventions can we use. And I remember right at the beginning, kind of going back to the thinking about the illustrations, writing how kindness is key. And that was like in a sentence that I'd written, and thinking, you know, that's key to all of the therapeutic approaches. We all want to try and do our best and tailor the therapy to meet people's needs. And then I'd asked Phoebe to, could she do a key and just write kindness in it? And she did a fantastic job of kind of knowing exactly what Mary and I were kind of looking for and then sending it back to us. And I think you might not think much about reading the sentence, kindness is key, but when you see the illustration, I think it kind of jumps out at you at the importance of kindness in everyday life. So yeah, just wanted to share that with you. Thought it might be quite interesting thinking about how we were coming up with some of the images. The same with the cauldron, actually, thinking about that. I thought it was really important for us to talk about kindness ingredients and what that would involve. So we've got, you know, the K, the mnemonic is a K for keep learning, I for interacting, N for nurturing, D for decision making, all of the things that we can do that are kind of kindness ingredients, not just for ourselves, but for other people. And Mary and I both were thinking quite similar about it, because I was thinking about ingredients and Mary was thinking about recipes. And so we asked Phoebe to do could she do a cauldron? So it's a big mix, you know, and you've got this cauldron full of kindness. And I think with the image as well, I think that brings the words to life a little bit more. So I don't know what you guys think, who have maybe had chance to look at the book, if you had any favourite images or anything. But I'm just seeing that Maggie's made a comment, which she likes a pluralistic approach. I agree.
I think it's quite interesting for me to just listening to that. There's quite so much actually that you just talked about. But one thing that stood out, and I think I've written about this a couple of times in a few blogs when I was blogging. Although I am very passionate, shall we say, about CFT because of the difference that Compassionate Mind approach has made to me personally, I also was using elements of ACT, and actually in that therapeutic relationship, it wasn't introduced as here's CFT and here's ACT, by the way. It was just here's some things that you might find helpful. And I think I have written, so other psychotherapists could just close their ears for a minute, but I have said before, I don't really care what it's called, to be honest. It could be called XYZ, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's what elements of it work. And I think that's
Yeah.
the true bit that you've pulled together in the book as well, which is great. and to kind of avoid those kind of tribal bits. You both, Mary and Elaine, you've touched upon a couple of kind of the key things, or maybe some of the elements of the book in terms of things like the. So I'm just looking at my notes from what you were just talking about. You've talked about the music, the kindness box. I was going to ask you in terms of some of your favourite parts of the book, although that's probably an unfair question in certain respects. You know, which is your favourite child kind of thing. But before I perhaps come back to that, to ask you that, Phoebe, have you got a particular favourite illustration out of the book, or maybe that's an unfair question to you as well?
I've been drawing these guys for like 2 years, so it's kind of like in between babies. I love them all. I can't choose, but on page 70, I really like the image of them in a band, and they're all kind of playing different instruments.
Yeah,
I think that was just a really fun picture to do, and it was just nice. But as I said, there's so many that I love drawing, especially some of the bigger images were just like a joy to make.
Yeah, brilliant. And I can see that Anne's actually put a comment on that. There's lots of lovely images, particularly likes the Tree of Life image and exercise. So that's really nice. And if there are any other particular images or comments that people want to add, please do add them to the chat. We have touched upon, I'm conscious we're about up to the half hour, but in terms of the key things, we've got music, the kindness box. Are there any other bits that you just want to tease out, Mary or Elaine, before we perhaps open up to some questions?
I don't know. I suppose that, you know, the key thing is for us, you know, kind of like, I speak for myself, but I'm sure it's true for, you know, kind of like Elaine and Phoebe as well. I think that, you know, it's the feedback that in actual fact and how people use it. So we hope that we've left things open, you know, whereby, you know, what could you do? Because creativity isn't a static thing, you know, so we have quite a lot of things in there that we say, we could do this and you could do this, and how about doing this? But often it's coming back to, or you might think of other things, you know, you might have ideas, you know, to put in the box or to do in a slightly different way, etc. And I suppose that what I'm looking forward to is the process of hearing back from people how they're using that and harnessing, you know, kind of like that, and share, you know, people sharing things. So I, you know, I hope it is a foundation stone on which we can, you know, learn together and share, and that's what's great about, you know, the publishers agreeing that we could put all of the resources, you know, on there. So the worksheets and spare this and spare that onto the Overcoming website. So, you know, the worksheets and all sorts of different things are on there, which is, again, it's a lovely, you know, it's a kind thing, isn't it? You know, that they were, you know, generally, yeah, let's do it. That's what they do with their books. But I think that it will be, hopefully, you know, a starting point of other stuff, you know, for other people's creativity as well, and maybe sharing those things. And, you know, it'd be lovely if we got, you know, pictures on Twitter or social media, you know, kind of like to share and to expand on things, because on the lead up to the book being published, you know, we had a bit of a countdown, and some people were sharing some things that were just lovely and just really started my brain pinging and thinking, oh, you know, so that's, you know, that's one thing I'd like to say.
That reminds me, Mary, that when we did, we posted on Twitter, we posted the Music and Me worksheet, and I'd kind of put some ideas, and lots of people really engaged. And Kate Snewin, who I can see here, came up with a great one, Kate, which was the music I want to listen to when I want to be badass. And I thought, that's fantastic. I mean, we have got in our on the worksheet, are there any other situations you'd like a playlist for? But I do wish that we would have got badass on that worksheet.
There's an inclusion for the second edition.
Yeah. Was it Lizzo or somebody, Kate? Who was your badass music?
I think when I want to feel badass, I listen to Lizzo.
I was like, go, Kate.
So
yeah,
let's.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
No, go on. I was going to open up because I know we've got to start to get some questions and some comments coming on. So let's just open this up. So I don't know if so. The first one I've just spotted is from Steve. So Steve, I can see you on screen. So do you want to say yours, or are you okay to join now?
Sure, can do. Yeah. Basically, just wanted to say, like, I'm a bookseller, like, as well as a trainee therapist, and the illustration style is brilliant. Like, I really, really appreciate the representation that's in there. And Phoebe, I can't believe you're like a student, like you're producing work that's equivalent to the stuff we'd have on the shelves. So can't wait to stock it when it's back. When we're back in work, that is. Not saying who I work for. I mean, there's only one bookshop in the UK. But what I wanted to ask is, what age are you kind of like aiming it for? I know you said it's for all ages, but is there a minimum sort of age range that you'd be looking at it for, if that makes sense? An earliest age, and that's the authors, I guess.
It's a tricky question, isn't it, Mary? Because we've kind of both been asked this quite a lot, really. And I've had some of my uni students that have used some of the exercises, like the Tree of Life. Or I've got Maria, who was one of my students a couple of years ago, and some of the ideas we ran by the compassion focused therapy class, and people were saying that they could resonate with that because maybe, with things like the imagery and the mindfulness stuff, but actually could see it in schools and colleges. So I think it's really difficult, Mary. We found it really difficult to put an age on it, didn't we?
Yeah. And I suppose that the difficulty has been with, kind of like lockdown and, kind of like homeschooling. And in an ideal world, I wouldn't have been homeschooling while simultaneously kind of like trying to complete it. But also, kind of like there was a number of schools who kind of like we had, that I've been working with, who were going to do projects, but then homeschooling, it's very difficult to do things. However, subsequently, there has been, so Key Stage 2 have been, so that would be your kind of like your juniors at a couple of schools have been giving some feedback, and it's been largely led by, kind of like teachers and or with parents. However, I had an email the other day from one of the teachers who was saying, kind of like one of the students had worked the way through and had said, and that's, like they'd been saying, are you sure, kind of like you've been doing that, and then had sent in photos of some of the worksheets and things like that. So that was Key Stage 2. But then, I've got a 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. And I can imagine, them engaging with aspects of it, like the music and me, but then certainly older, we kind of, people working through it, there are young people who are working through it. So it's really tricky. Again, coming back to characters, we kind of like, we referred to, interviews and school and college and university and work and, the whole, and siblings and the whole range of different things. So we didn't want it to be too tightly, kind of like, these are the parameters of it. So I suppose in a long way of saying it depends.
And it's very interesting, actually, just while you've been saying on the comments, there's quite a few comments there we've got where it has adults are using it and the feedback on there as well. And again, Phoebe, there's another comment there about how wonderful the illustrations are in helping with that as well, with it being used with clients. So that's, that kind of it is almost for everyone in certain respects. And I do like the comment I think somebody's made in there, I think, where did I see it? Erica, about the inner child, because I think that's something that sometimes as adults, especially in current situations. Sometimes it's quite nice to be engaged with that more childlike curiosity, to engage with something like, you know, deepening kindness and looking after yourself. There's another question, I think, in the chat. I thought I saw something. So Kate, that was from you. Are you okay to unmute and join on?
Yeah. So yeah, I just, before I ask my question, I just wanted to say it's so amazing to have a book that is more geared towards young people, that's more young people friendly, because working with CFT with young people, they're just, you can adapt things, of course, but it's nice to have something that is more that's illustrated and speaks to younger people as well as adults. So it's really, I think it's great and it's quite unique. So brilliant. My question is, after being involved in CFT for so long, and that really that sort of defining compassion as separate from kindness, was it strange to then focus on kindness for a whole book? Did it feel strange, or did it just feel quite natural?
Do you want to answer that, Elaine, or shall I?
You can make a start, Mary, while I think about it.
Oh, yeah. I think it is really difficult, isn't it? And I kind of think there's part of me that wants to go, you know, these are, you know, kind of like different, you know, and they are, you know, we define them in certain ways, etc. However, you know, actually, you know, and so if you're asking a question about, you know, how do we define kindness and things like that, I think that we know kindness when we experience it or see it. You know, similarly that we know compassion when we, you know, kind of like, you know, see it or experience it. And I think that, you know, I certainly wanted to reclaim the word, you know, compassion, and I kind of, you know, in schools and things, one of the predominant values in any school, you know, kind of like in any NHS kind of like place is compassion. And yet when you ask young people, what does that exactly mean? Actually, they will struggle with it quite often, just as, you know, kind of like we struggled. They'll be able to say what perseverance is, or courage, or, you know, all sorts of other things. So very quickly when I started working with young people, I realized that, you know, we had to have ways of talking about things that were consistent with how people spoke, and readily people would nod and be, you know, kind of like they would know instantaneously what it would be to be kind, you know. And often we think about with compassion, it's got that courage, and I think it's got that wisdom and that strength, but in actual fact you can argue that kindness does too. You know, if you were, you know, kind of being kind to a friend, it might be about having a tricky conversation, you know. So I know that from a research and an academic point of view, that it is helpful for us to define our terms and really be kind of like tight on those definitions, especially if we're researching them and, you know, writing, you know, about them. However, in practice, you know, Russell's kind of like program, it's true strength, you know, kind of like rather than compassion. So it's finding language and words that, you know, kind of like that we can all come around and grasp. So that would be it for me. So it is, you know, kind of like, I did go through that, oh my God, you know, kind of like, oh my God, but it's almost like, you know, it's back to that thing of Elaine was saying about the emphasis is about creative approaches. The emphasis is about you know, doing things for oneself and other people that's creative and that's for our well-being. So, you know, kind of like kindness, just to me, it just, if I keep that framework, I can write it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. You know, it's not a book about CFT. It was so easy. There was so much that got taken out of the book. that was CFT, because it was going to end up, Kate, being like so much CFT, and that wasn't our original idea. Our original idea was creative approaches. Of course, there's lots of creative stuff within CFT, because we've got things like method acting and voice tones and like drama, you know, that can be seen as creative concepts. But it really is just a book about how can we be kind to ourselves and to other people. When you get to the behaviour chapters, I suppose they do focus a little bit more on kind of courage and wisdom. So it kind of has a flavour of CBT as well as CFT. But I think as well, when Mary and I and Phoebe had already started work on it when Caroline Flack died, and it was like really, really sad. And there was so much about kindness. And we'd already, you know, we were a year or so into the project, I think, by then. But I was thinking, you know, if more people relate to the word kind that are not kind of psychotherapists, then the whole world needs more kindness right now. And with the Kindness Workbook, you know, it's for young people, but actually I've got some people that are parents that are working through the workbook with the kids or the young adults, and are saying, you know, that reminded me of being kind to myself. So so I hope that answers your question, Kate.
Yeah, I think I'm just really interested in that, because I think it's so I know this isn't a CFT book, but it's just in CFT it's so heavily defined, that kind of difference between, and I just wondered really that experience of sort of doing something different. But I think what you're saying about, you know, kindness being really so much in people's vocabulary is really important. And yesterday I was watching a clip of somebody, an influencer being interviewed and saying, you know, in a world that you can be anything, be kind, and that, I think that is very much in people's language. So yeah, it's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, the only thing that I would add is, you know, like saying there was points at which I was kind of, you know, a little bit, you know, kind of like panicky at times around, you know, are we properly defining things? Are we saying how it's different and things like that? But that, again, I keep coming back to, we're just being creative. We're wanting something that's helpful, wanting to put things out there. And, you know, in sending it off to Paul and asking, you know, can you have a look at this? And what do you think? And he was lovely about it, you know, kind of like, and so positive about it, that, you know, kind of like that, you know, kind of like that was really, really lovely. You know, because again, his, you know, comment was, you know, this stuff, you know, if it can be of help to people, you know, and the fact of, you know, it is often about blending different things and repackaging different things and delivering things in different ways. But, you know, there's a strong influence, obviously, of the kind of like of Paul in there. And so for him to say, you know, great, it's out there. It was lovely.
And the ingredients are kindness, you know, so, you know, our little kindness ingredients, our recipe is all about kindness. So it's hoping, we're just hoping that, you know, that message comes through when people start thinking, well, how can I be kinder to myself? You know, they've got the image of the cauldron with the worksheet that talks all about how you can do that. But yeah, Paul was lovely, wasn't he? So we were thrilled with Paul's endorsement. We actually got fantastic endorsements by quite a few people, didn't we, in the end? So we were thrilled with them all.
Yeah.
And I think there's a few interesting comments have been added to the chat, just in terms of I do like the comments about they've ordered the book under the deception of ordering it for the children. I like that. And actually there's just the last comment there, which is around definitions, and that leads to individual interpretation. I think that's quite an interesting comment, actually, and I think from someone who's been on kind of the receiving end of a therapeutic relationship, actually, you know, when words like compassion, kindness, acceptance get thrown about, sometimes you have to work through on an individual basis what that means to you. And I think that's when those words really mean something, is when you've worked through it individually and what it means to you. I think if somebody tries to define to you, certainly in certain stages of your life, what compassion is, it's difficult. It's not. I think you have to work through that. There is a question on there which I do want to get onto. Somebody's asked about different languages for the book. Is it going to be published in? And I think it's come from somebody in Germany. We are truly global. Are there any plans for different languages for the book?
I'm aware that we've just had the publication date for the US and for where else? You're more keeping aware of these things, aren't you, Elaine?
Yeah. So it was North America and Canada, or North America. We were saying the US. Mary and I were saying the US and Canada, and the publisher pointed out that we to say North America, but anyway. I know, and it's going to be out in Australia and New Zealand in February. So yeah, it's early days yet, because even with the Compassionate Mind Workbook, which was published in 2017, that's currently being translated into Japanese, Italian and German. So that's kind of like a couple of years down the line. So hopefully it will do. And this actually sold out on Amazon apparently. So as some of our Twitter friends will know, because we were kind of plugging Anxiety UK on Twitter, weren't we, Mary? But yeah, hopefully it will be out in different languages. But yeah, we'll maybe another year or so, and we'll have more of an idea about that.
Okay, thank you. And I can see there's just a couple of other comments, and there's one there from Stan. I haven't spotted Stan yet. Just in terms of expanding upon that compassion and kindness. We've got actually we're about slightly over the time, but that's okay. I think we're. Are we okay, Mary?
Yeah, cool.
Oh, okay. So, are there any other questions that folks would like to ask? I'm just having a look because there is some other comments being added as well. So that's a really nice. I don't know if you've seen the comment that's just been added by Maria. That's a really nice. That's a really nice way, actually, of looking at it in terms of. I really like that idea of magical thinking, and I guess the illustrations really support that as well. I may well pinch that magical thinking. That's a really lovely phrase.
I mean, it's just speaking to that question, that comment, which is lovely. I often do think that we grow up often creating imaginary friends, kind of like an imaginary, kind of like scenes and, all sorts of things. But somewhere on the line, we, in actual fact, we can develop quite a hostile relationship with ourselves, undermining, demeaning, all sorts of other things. And, people will often say, certainly with the imagery kind of like stuff, or the Compassionate Crusader, the Kindness Crusaders, kind of that might be, I've heard a bit weird asking people to do things, and yet in actual fact, it's a huge thing to be doing, and it can be hugely helpful. And it's going back to, I'm just following on from Maria's point, it's going back to, what actually we create when we're younger, and, that is helpful to us. And why not?
Absolutely. So I'm going to end on one last question, which I'm going to pinch from Twitter. And I know she's on the call actually, but I saw a really good tweet to I think it was either to both of you, Mary, Elaine, or maybe it's just Mary, but it was from Fee. And Fiona asked a question, which I know she's on here, which was if you could give a piece of advice to your younger self, maybe to your teenage self, what would it be? And I thought it was a lovely question. So I'd like to see what your answer to that would be. So that's to Mary and Elaine.
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Go on, Elaine.
It's really difficult. I responded to the tweet because I thought it was a lovely tweet. I don't remember knowing much about mindfulness and using your imagination with, doing things like calm and peaceful place. as a child, and I think that would have helped slow me down a little bit, and maybe be, you know, I was always I would always get very embarrassed. I've always been quite fair and would, you know, be embarrassed in school and go and blush, and you'd always have somebody in the class would go, oh, look at Elaine Beaumont, she's gone dead red, you know, and stuff like that. So doing things that could maybe perhaps help me not feel as anxious about kind of blushing and whatever as a young girl. I also like the kind of cultivating supportive thoughts and voice tones. And one of my favorites with people in practice, particularly with young people, is thinking about 3 good things. So, you know, getting people to think about what 3 good things, or even if it's just 1 good thing. But it's very, very difficult. It's really, really difficult, because tomorrow it'll be something else, I'm sure. But those are a couple for today.
Lovely, thanks, Elaine. Go on then, Mary.
I suppose mine would be more of a theme throughout the book, you know, kind of like, which is more about, you know, there's more people than you know, we all struggle. You know, many of us struggle with things, and this is okay. You know, we start off in the book talking about, you know, me and Elaine, you know, we had fun writing it, you know, growing up in times where there was telephone boxes and swirly carpets and no seatbelts in the back of cars, and, you know, avocado bathroom suites and things like that. But, you know, kind of like, I certainly, you know, there wasn't much talk about kind of like anxiety, or, you know, when you feel kind of the outsider. And that's why the you know, kind of like the characters the way through, and it not being a dense book, it being something that I could pick up and put down and pick up and put down and see just by an illustration what somebody else might be thinking, you know, that I might be able to connect with. I think it's that, you know, kind of like in CFT, we're, you know, kind of like we often refer to, you know, it's the common humanity element to it. But I think that would have helped, and also having a physical thing, you know, or i.e. the book, you know, that would have certainly maybe, you know, kind of like be of help to me, that includes all of these different aspects.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And I can see that there's a little comment about the blushing, and then also Kate just reconfirming that a bit. And I think that's right. That struggle piece is that seems quite an opportune moment actually to start to draw the book club event to a close. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you, Phoebe, Mary, and Elaine here as the guests, chatting about this wonderful book. It's not been quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. When about an hour before it was started, I was decided. Somebody did send me a lovely message just before this. Thank you, Rose. And I did reply to say what I was thinking at that point was why. But anyway, it's been lovely to do this. Thank you ever so much for everyone who's come along and joined in. I hope you found it really interesting and informative. There is a book club planned for February. I haven't yet made the commitment whether that's via video or back on Twitter, but that is with Stan Steidel, who is here on video. Stan, do you want to just unmute and say hello? I can't see you on my screen at the moment. But that would be with Stan talking about the gift of compassion, to be confirmed in February. But thank you. I still can't see Stan.
It's maybe I'm
in bed. Sorry, Stan. Sorry. Of course, yes. It's actually it's just about 7 o'clock, isn't it? Sorry. You will be dressed for the next one, won't you, in February? Right. On that point, I think we better wrap up.
All I would say is thank you, you know, kind of like Chris. And one of the things about the kind of like the community that you've created is, I think it is amazing. And what I've really liked about it, of course, I could have sat here and, you know, done kind of like tweets in response to things, but there's too many faces on here that I want to say hello.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
And I'm just loving that. I'm just absolutely loving that I can see people and I can kind of like, oh. So I've loved it for that, you know, can I that reason.
I will 100% agree with that, and I am now blushing, Elaine. So I think, thankfully, it's a little bit dark, so that's okay. Okay, we'll wrap up. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in.
Thank
It's
you,
been
everybody.
wonderful.
Lovely
Take
to
care.
see you all. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
Well done, Chris.
See ya. Bye.